What's up, everybody? Welcome to IGN Game Scoop. I'm your host, Damon Hadfield. Joining me today, Dan Stapleton.
That's me.
Justin Davis.
Scoop.
Brian Altano. We've got a great show for you today. So much to get to. We're going to rank the major video game publishers working today. But first, alternate history. What is it? Where does it come from? Does it have our best interests? Today we're going to be talking about alternate histories in video games leading up to The Order 1886, which comes out next month and is an alternate history game. We're also going to give away a copy of The Order 1886 for the PlayStation 4 video computer entertainment system from Sony. All you have to do to enter yourself to win, is go to go.ign.com/orderscoop. You'll fill out a form. It's the same form that the Daily Fix uses, so at the top of the page, you have to click the drop down and select Game Scoop, or else you're going to be entering to win whatever the Daily Fix is giving away. I don't know. A date with Tim Geddes or something.
No, almost certainly not that.
Go to ign.com/orderscoop to enter for your chance to win a copy of The Order 1886. Anyway, alternate histories. To me, I think that means that it involves events and people that really happened and lived and changes the events so that the world that we live in today wouldn't be the same if these different events happened.
Yes.
We're all on board with this?
Yep.
For that reason, I don't think I include the original BioShock in here.
It's a middle. It's a gray area.
Gray area, right? Because
Sure.
it's like, it doesn't involve any real people or real
No.
events.
Right.
So it's kind of like on a separate
The
timeline.
BioShock Infinite you would count.
Yes, BioShock Infinite I would. So I'm just trying to set the stage.
Wait, what, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because
No,
that
he was
actually-
trying to wrap my head around that.
Booker was a member of the Pinkertons.
Pinkertons, yeah.
Got it. Okay.
And he was in the Civil War, etc.
And Columbia seceded from America, and yeah.
I was going to say,
BioShock does feel more removed from real events, although it does have, like, it obviously takes place on Earth. I don't know.
I know,
It's
I
a
realize
gray
it's a gray area, but you have to set up some parameters, and these are the parameters that I've set up in my...
Although, the original BioShock is an alternate dimension from BioShock
Yeah,
Infinite.
that is true,
And BioShock
so-
Infinite does take place in an alternate version of the real world, therefore...
technically,
all right.
there's always a
Spoilers.
lighthouse.
That's true. Anyway, this is a brief history of alternate history in video games.
Not anymore.
Not an exhaustive list. There's some things that will be left off, but I've just tried to hit the key points. Let's start with the truck have started to move. Metal Gear was released on the NES here in North America in 1987. This is the first instance that I could find of an alternate history video game, because Solid Snake is sent by his superior big boss to the fictional South African fortress Outer Heaven. Then, the Metal Gear saga spans decades and many different games.
That's actually pretty interesting. Like, the more time that passes, things become alternate histories that weren't intended to be alternate histories. Game that take place in 1990X.
Yeah.
When
exactly.
so and so takes over, and but that game came out 10 years before that, and they didn't mean it to be that way. But Metal Gear eventually did end up having this whole giant lore that spanned back to Big Boss with Metal Gear Solid 3.
A third Snake brother, known as Solidus Snake, is introduced as the United States president at the end of Metal Gear Solid, and serves as the main antagonist of Metal Gear Solid 2.
Of course.
During his time as president, Solidus became aware of a secretive cabal known as the Patriots, who were steadily manipulating the course of human history.
Yeah.
So that didn't happen.
No.
Right?
So, alternate history.
Okay, sweet. Just checking.
Yeah. In 1992, Wolfenstein 3D,
Yeah.
which is a common theme, actually, in video games you'll find is...
If the Nazis won.
Yeah, what if the Nazis had experimented with supernatural, turned Hitler into robot Hitler?
Robo Hitler, exactly.
They actually,
Mecha Hitler.
They actually did experiment with that
They did
stuff.
do some
The question is
occult
whether
stuff,
they
yeah.
succeeded.
Yeah.
Wolfenstein, not so much 3D, but the later games are actually a little bit more story focused. Like
Yep.
last year's Wolfenstein are actually an example of alternate history done right. Like when it's sort of at its best, or why it's this cool thing, or can be this cool, awesome thing. Because it's awesome. Like you get these, like Hitler is so evil, this evil man, but you get to see him in a giant mech suit and fight him, and he's got guns, and there's zombies, and it's like this meshing of like the history that we all know and playing around with it and knowing that they did run these experiments, but like what if they manage to take it 10 steps farther, and then you get to sort of play that out in a video game. It's badass.
Wolfenstein also represents an alternate history where you can leave a plate of food on the floor and a dog won't eat it, which is not true at all. And that you can make a giant building with no stairs.
Man, there's so many games with Nazi stuff that didn't actually happen. I think even for like Battlefield 1942, there was an expansion that had like the secret weapons of World War II, where it was just like stuff that Nazis had on the drawing board that you could.
Well, yeah, a lot of it was sort of just like there were some plans to create like cyborgs allegedly, so that became like lore in so many video games where you're fighting these Nazi robots.
Yeah. Are you gonna get to? Are we gonna talk about Red Alert later?
Yeah.
That was gonna be the next one.
Okay.
And you spoiled it. I was gonna have Dan try and guess.
Unbelievable.
That's like the obvious one.
It's just my favorite one, and it's because of its Nazi ties.
Albert Einstein travels back in time to stop Hitler. He encounters Hitler on the street and shakes his hand, and then
They
voila,
just explode.
when Einstein travels back to the future, Hitler never like rose to power, and that's sorted.
Yeah,
but then
Stalin
the
was kind
Soviet
of a
Union rose instead to take.
Yeah.
Wait, but
Nazi
technically
place.
this could still happen using time machine laws.
Right.
So but as up until now, it's alternate history.
Yeah.
It
no, but
could
wait.
theoretically become
Like
real
if Justin
history.
builds a time machine tomorrow,
But he has to take it back to Albert Einstein.
It doesn't work that way. If
He wouldn't
someone,
do that.
if anybody ever went back in time and changed time, we would never know because we would just be living in what was the last 60 years of history for us. Maybe someone did go back and change things, and then they mucked it up even worse, and that's how we ended up with Hitler.
Deep scoop.
Right.
Deep scoop.
Damn.
I absolutely love that the Red Alert games just get more and more off the rails as they go. Red Alert 3 actually changed it. So you touched on it. The premise is that no Hitler, but then it turns out that gave the Soviet Union a chance to go nuts and they start World War II themselves. Red Alert 3, they go back in time and try to change it even further and tinker with it and end up just making it worse. And
And
I
then
just
all-
love that the B-roll's been over for like 30 seconds. It's just sticky.
Now he's
then,
waiting for his
like,
next move.
In Red Alert 3, like Japan becomes
Yeah.
like a thing, and comes out and attacks both the Soviets and the Americans, the Allies.
the Red Alert games really have a lot of fun with it. It's that perfect combination of, I don't know why a lot of alternate history games do this, but that combination of like 1950s retro, like old school. They always want to take like advanced technology and put it in like a context that feels more like World War II-ish or
Sure. Like the Rocketeer or something like that.
maybe not every single time, but that seems to be the most common. Like in Red Alert 2, you have these Tesla coil weapons and all these sort of advanced tanks that they didn't actually have in World War II, but it makes it a lot of fun to play around with.
I think it's because it's a very artistically fascinating time, and it was also a sort of like weirdly triumphantly patriotic time as well. I think you lost a lot with the future wars that America fought in afterwards, but at the time it was kind of like there was this camaraderie around it.
You can unabashedly root for America.
Yeah,
Like it's the last time there was like a blatant bad guy that's like there's no shades of gray.
Yeah, it makes good video game fodder, you know.
Well, it's also
It's just a good way to recycle that setting. It's like instead of yet another World War II game, it's like a World War II game, except now there are lasers.
yeah,
And
exactly.
so
It lets you have your cake and eat it too.
Right.
I'm all for adding lasers to things that didn't have them originally.
Yeah,
So.
I've always said that.
Pro laser.
In 1997, the first Fallout was released.
Yeah.
And remind me there was a nuclear war in the 50s, right? Is that why all their everything was
No.
locked in
Yeah,
the 50s?
it's actually
No, not true.
Yeah, I don't know how well. You go ahead.
No, Fallout actually isn't an alternate history; it's an alternate future.
Oh
because
man,
the war
I messed this one up.
the war that destroyed the world in Fallout took place in 2077, I think.
So why are they stuck in this 50s?
Well, it is an
aesthetic?
alternate history because they never the beatniks and the
Right.
rise of hippie culture never happened. Like the
Right.
world was
Yeah.
stuck in the 1950s, and that progressed, and then there was a nuclear war, and everybody ended up in the vaults.
True, but so it was an alternate timeline altogether.
Yeah.
It's both an alternate history and an alternate future, but you never actually play in the alternate past.
But it's another example of
It blew me out of my chair.
Did you know that Fallout takes place further in the future than Mass Effect?
yeah.
But
I think it
does.
it's time wise it's all or stylistically it's the 1950s.
Right.
Right. Well,
Yeah,
yeah.
like a decimated 1950s.
Except it was a futuristic 1950s because all the technology that's there is pre-war technology, like the laser weapons and plasma weapons and everything, and the super mutants are all pre-war technology that survived.
Yeah.
So the most shocking thing you could bring to the Fallout world is not a mutant. It's like a cassette deck.
Yeah, like a Walkman.
But then they do still have, it's almost like steampunky, and I'm sure it doesn't actually fit the definition of it, but like taking past technologies, and they do have like radios that like float by your side, but they use like a different technology, and they're displayed on these old like glowing green screens, and that's how all the computers look in that world.
Yeah, and it's the kind of retro-futuristic kind of world where
Almost like Battlestar Galactica-esque.
yeah, it's like you imagine what people in the 50s would have thought the future would look like, and that's what the 2077 of Fallout was when the war
Paleofuturism.
happened. Yeah,
It's one of my favorite things in the world.
That's
No,
actually-
really it's what the Jetsons hinges on, right?
Yeah,
like I
just
think
what people thought the future would look like way back when.
I don't know where we are in real life in comparison to the Jetsons, but like by now I think they said that we would have cars that fit in our suitcases and robots
fly.
that dress
And you
us
know
for
the
us, and
world
we
of
could
the
fly.
Jetsons is like terrifying, right? Because
Yeah.
they all live up in the sky. You don't know what's going on on the Earth in the Jetsons. You never see it.
Yeah, I'd be terrified.
Yeah,
it's
you don't.
slums.
Yeah, exactly. You don't know what's down there.
In 2000, Crimson Skies was released on
yeah, that's
PC
right.
and the original Xbox. It's totally a cult favorite.
Underrated game.
An air combat simulator set in an alternate history of the 1930s in which the United States has split into a number of smaller sovereignties and in which air travel has become the primary mode of transportation.
Man, how good was Crimson Skies?
Everyone loves that game.
I'd
It's just so-
kind of completely forgotten about it. Think about franchises that want to come back. Xbox, you're bringing back Phantom
Speaking of
Dust.
franchises you want to come back, do you want Blood Rain to come back? Which appeared first in 2002 and involved Nazis trying to resurrect the devil, Belial.
Wow, that was graphic. That woman got cut in half.
Yeah.
This game did come back a few years ago, right? As a 2D side.
Yeah, like a downloadable
Right.
like Xbox Live Arcade.
It was like Castlevania style-ish, right?
Yeah, I think there was a Blood Rain and a Blood Rain 2.
Yep.
And then Blood Rain, I don't know, whatever that downloadable game was.
And then there was the Uwe Boll movie.
There was a movie on.
I was gonna say, then they made a bunch of sequels. to
Doing
that
some
movie,
Tarzan
too.
stuff there.
Whoa.
Yeah. She's like half vampire, I think. So
Yeah.
That's what she is.
This was an alternate timeline?
It involved Nazis trying to resurrect the devil.
Well, we don't know if that wasn't
Yeah,
something
they
they
probably
tried.
did.
But
That is
maybe
true.
they did.
That's what's so great about Nazis as villains. It's like,
Just throw her off the edge.
can you tell me definitively that there wasn't someone in some Nazi basement that was on a project
Yeah.
to bring the devil back? It's like, no, I don't know. They were up to all kinds of stuff. So
It's like, I wouldn't put it past them.
exactly. Anything is
Anything you
possible.
say, I wouldn't put it past them.
If anybody wants to watch a bizarre slice of video game history on YouTube, on IGN's YouTube channel, search Blood Rain to Audition and just sit back and try and figure out what's going on.
Oh man, I'm gonna do that after
Yeah,
this.
me too.
That sounds
In 2003, Freedom Fighters.
Yep.
Anyone remember this game?
Yep.
I have a.
I only played the sequel.
Gosh, I guess I forgot that there was a sequel.
Wasn't this made by a very early Irrational, or am I thinking of something else?
It's Freedom Force.
Oh, Freedom Force.
Which is also kind of alternate history because it's like Silver Age comics stuff.
This
from the
looks like
60s.
Siphon Filter to me.
It does.
Yeah.
No, I don't remember this game. I only remember Freedom Force.
In this game, it's an alternate history where the Soviet Union has invaded and occupied New York City. The player takes the role of a plumber turned American resistance movement leader. Another plumber hero.
Another one to add to the long,
I
long
smell a
list.
feature.
There we go. That's two. There's something glorious about games like this, by the way. That there was this kind of marvelous era of video games where the textures were still flat enough to look cartoony. So this game actually ages better than some games from 5 years ago because it's just
It's a really bad shot.
Yeah.
everything's just kind of clean and cartoony looking. But it is.
Yeah.
We thought this looked realistic back then.
It's also the era where like B-tier games just don't exist anymore. We've
Right.
talked about it all the time on Scoop.
Yep.
Fantastic time for indies. AAA games have never been bigger or better, but that middle ground has just completely fallen out.
Yeah.
One thing we should interject is Silent Storm.
Silent Storm.
Yeah, it's a PC alternate World War II game.
Okay.
It's a tactical turn-based strategy thing, kind of along the lines of XCOM, Fallout.
What's the alternate history?
It's World War II where you've got sci-fi stuff in there.
Yeah, another
All,
one.
they're all the same.
The history is Dan believes that's a real game and the rest of us don't.
In 2006, I believe with the launch of the PlayStation 3, Resistance Fall of Man. That was a launch game, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that's a great example.
In this game, in the 1940s, an alien race known as the Chimera spread throughout Europe. And we had to fight them.
like you do.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people think
Make it sound like such a. Then we had a fight though. And it was this pain in the ass.
like when I play, I
Stupid
played
thing.
through all of Resistance 1 and 2. I never got around to 3, and like I don't think about it in my head. Like I don't lump it into games set in the past, but it totally is. Like I think it's like 1951 in Resistance 1.
Yeah.
But you have like space guns and stuff that we borrowed. You know, we borrowed the alien technology, so you know, it sort of gets lumped in with my brain with stuff like, you know, Halo, even
Yeah.
though it was supposed to be 60 plus years ago.
Yeah.
That's the team that did Sunset Overdrive, right?
Yes.
It's Insomniac.
Insomniac, yeah.
That's what they're up to these days. Assassin's Creed
Yep.
Yeah.
made its debut in 2007 and has a lot of alternate history. A lot of real figures and real events, and then mucks it up with what? A plot about an ancient species that was destroyed by a massive solar storm.
Well, that's like the meta story.
Yeah.
Even the individual games.
But the
have,
Assassins and the Knights Templar are both real organizations.
yeah, that's why it's
Are the
another
Assassins
one.
a real organization?
They are, yeah.
I didn't
It's
know
a,
that.
it's a little bit of a gray area, just like Bioshock, where besides things like a better example would be the Tyranny of King Washington DLC.
Yeah.
Where it
actually,
tells an
that's
alternate.
that's perfect.
Yeah.
That tells an alternate story of like
I would've
what if.
thought of that.
So
Justin.
it's like what if George Washington, you know, declared himself king of America, and then I think he wants to wipe out all Native Americans, and I think he wants to go over and get revenge.
Yeah,
on
he went
England
insane.
and-
Yeah, he was
Right?
also like possessed by an
Right.
evil spirit or something, or an evil
Yep.
artifact. Yeah.
The mainline Assassin's Creed games are totally alternate histories, but in a much more like gentle. Like they're really kind of trying to match. Like if a character, if a person died of poisoning in real life, they'll have him die of poisoning in the game, but like with a twist, like an assassin.
Yeah,
Well,
they're
there's-
going for like more of an untold story kind
Yeah,
of thing. It's
exactly.
like, well, here's what really happened.
There's
you know.
there's subtle things though. There's like Leonardo da Vinci is giving you a gun.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
subtle
just
as
like
hell.
building
Yeah,
inventions for
little
you.
things.
But it's like, how do we know he didn't?
Yeah, even if you remove the sort of, and like I don't want to spoil anything, but I think it's Assassin's Creed 2 is the space goddesses, right? Where
You can
like,
spoil it.
Yeah, there's you get
Yeah.
this, you download this like Windows Media Player clip from the 90s
Yeah.
of Adam and Eve like jumping out of the Garden of Eden with this space
Yeah,
ball.
remember
that they
unlocking
stole.
that like a
Yeah,
a
me
fraction
too.
of a
Yeah,
second
piece
at a
by
time?
piece.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was insane. So that I don't think happened.
I remember that being the moment I checked out of like the grander
You're
Assassin's
like,
Creed
well,
story. When
I'll
these-
keep playing you Assassin's Creed, but I'm not going to pay attention to your story.
And it's amazing too because like I think in the scope of everything else we've talked about, like the attention for historic detail in a lot of those games is probably far and away stronger and better than we've seen in any of these other games.
Oh, yeah.
But the ridiculousness totally pulls you away from all that.
Yeah, we ran a feature recently on the real history and the Assassin's Creed history of like these different people that lived and the eras and the cities. And I thought they were going to be wildly divergent. Like they would have to have people jump centuries to even get them to fit in the story. But like the Assassin's Creed games actually do obviously care about the history that they're kind of treading
I
on
think
to
so.
make their
I think
games.
so too. Dan, what about the Stalker series?
Stalker is set in Chernobyl.
In the area surrounding the Chernobyl accident site.
I don't recall what year that's supposed to take place in now.
Well, in this reality, a second explosion occurs at the power plant sometime after the first and causes strange changes in the area around it.
Yeah, there's radiation everywhere. It's kind of unclear when it's taking place because everything's destroyed. So it's not like that whole area is kind of frozen in time.
This is a really gross, dirty looking game.
It
It's
is.
also like this is the year 2007, and it's still hard to find like good footage of games
Yeah.
from this time.
Stalker was incredibly gorgeous when it came out.
Yeah, we
I
can
mean, I
fire
know
that
it's
up.
dirty, but I mean,
Yeah,
like,
yeah, no, I
technically
gotcha.
it was impressive as hell.
You can fire that up on Steam right now. Anyway, it's I know somebody told me when it takes place at one point, but I
In the
forgot
bottom
when
corner,
it is.
action gameplay,
Yes.
work in progress.
It's kind of what I like about some alternate histories is they're almost timeless. Like you could tell me Fallout was in like any year, and I'd be like, all right, like it makes its own, like it carves out its own space.
Yeah, I actually think like Fallout, they went too far in the future for it to make sense because like stuff should have rebuilt more by then. But anyway,
Well, no one came out of their vaults for a long time.
but there were people out there already. Anyway,
Yeah.
And you remember World in Conflict?
I do remember World in Conflict. That's a Soviet invasion game.
Yeah, it's an RTS game, first of all,
Yes.
right? PC, and then I think maybe the sequel came to.
There was a console
consoles,
version of the like expanded
Yeah.
version. Yeah.
But that's set in 1989. Where were we here? Soviet forces launch a surprise invasion of Seattle, Washington.
Yep.
They didn't even give us the courtesy of letting us know they were coming to
I
invade
think,
us.
I think that was narrated by Alec Baldwin.
Really?
Wow.
Yes.
Interesting. How about this one from 2008? You guys remember a game called Operation Darkness?
No.
Atlas?
Yeah, that sounds
It's
super
this-
generic.
Grid-based, turn-based strategy game
It takes place on a real beach.
It follows a squad of British Special Air Service soldiers fighting the Nazis across the European theater. The story covers much of the real history of the European War. The game diverges significantly from real history in that zombies of deceased Nazi soldiers appear as adversaries, and 2 of the player characters can transform into werewolves.
How did you time that?
Wow.
So exactly when you said zombies appeared, zombies came up on screen. You're good.
I'm a professional, man.
Yeah, I was your script escalated with this video perfectly. Because I was like, oh, this seems like, oh man, nope.
Yeah.
I just remember I was at TGS this year with Tal. We saw this game on the show floor. We were like, look at this crazy Japanese game. And then they brought it out over here, and
Yeah.
it was not good.
The werewolves thing is wild.
I thought I wanted to put it down. Yeah, we didn't give it a very good score here at IGN.
It looks cool.
How about Turning Point: Fall of Liberty?
I was wondering when you were going to bring that one up. It's
2008.
yet another Nazis won
Yeah.
kind of thing where the Nazis come in with Zeppelins and attack New York.
It's always Zeppelins.
Well,
That's how you know, like whenever I was watching the television show Fringe, or if there's ever an alternate reality or split dimensions, you know you're in the other dimension if there's Zeppelins.
Yep.
Yeah. This takes place in an alternate history in which Winston Churchill dies in 1931, 8 years before the start of World War II, presenting the possibility of what could have happened to Europe, the United States, and the rest of the world without his leadership. IGN gave it a 5.0.
Yeah, it was not a good game, which is unfortunate because it looked good. It looked like a good concept, kind of a pretty universe. I think even like the first few minutes of it, they had this big set piece opening that you're looking at now.
Kind of reminds me of the Saboteur.
Yeah.
A little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah.
Except for in color.
Yeah, in color, and like this is straight up a first-person shooter with these melee takedown moves. Whereas
Finish the fight.
Saboteur was a
Open world
GTA
game,
style.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I like that game a lot. That was fun.
Saboteur
it was
was
fun.
underrated.
Yeah.
What about the game Damnation?
Oh, that was a Unreal Tournament mod.
THQ.
Yeah, that one
Published
was
that game.
that one was made by a mod team. It was for an Unreal. It was initially made for an what is it? I forgot what the competition was that they used to hold.
Nothing like
for,
Gears of War.
Right. They used to hold these competitions for mod teams to develop Unreal mods and make total conversions. And they made this, and then they won the opportunity to turn it into a full retail game. It didn't turn out to be very good either,
Yeah.
but they had some good ideas in there, as I recall.
Set in the early part of the 20th century after the Civil War, has spanned over several decades where steam engines replace combustion engines. The game sees the protagonist fighting off a rich industrialist who wants to do away with both the Union and Confederate armies in one swift movement and turn the United States into a country called the American Empire with a totalitarian dictatorship.
Wow.
That's a cool premise.
IGN
Yeah.
gave it a 2.5.
Wow. That's really low.
Yeah. I believe that's painful. Honestly.
Yeah.
Man, really?
Yep.
Yep.
That's great. I didn't know that. We don't do that enough.
Well, most of those games we just don't cover because they're obviously it's so bad, and we'd rather tell you about a good game than a bad one.
I know, but I like reading painful reviews every now and then.
Every now and then, yeah.
Here's a game Colin Moriarty enjoyed, Singularity.
Oh yeah,
An Activision shooter from 2010.
that's
Involves
Raven developed it.
A modern soldier traveling back to 1955, saving a scientist, returning to the present, and learning that guy has taken over the world. So you have to bounce back and forth and figure out what to do with this guy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
this
this
is
is the same developer who did the Wolfenstein reboot before the most recent Wolfenstein
Yeah.
reboot.
Yeah.
It's another underrated. There was a handful of like underrated shooters from last gen, and this is one of them.
This one was generally, well made. It always just felt like a hodgepodge of things thrown together. It's like
Sure.
so many different weird mechanics thrown together. It never really felt like they all came together. But some cool ideas in there as well, and better than a 2.5.
Yeah, I think we gave it a 7 or 7.5.
Yeah,
We gave it a
it's
good score.
generally a respectable, good game.
Double Fine released Trenched in 2011, which would eventually turn into Iron Brigade.
That's
so I
right.
don't-
They completely changed the name.
I don't really remember why they had to change the name.
There's some sort of weird legal thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but in this game, it's set in an alternate history. Shortly after the end of World War I, a strange radio communication known as the broadcast is sent across the world and caused many people who listened to it to die.
Wow.
Yeah.
Once again, this is a game that I actually have had this game on my to play list on Steam for a long time. I haven't got around to it yet. I didn't know this was an alternate history.
It's a really fun game.
Yeah.
Yes, there are a bunch of I wonder if you even count like games like Rome Total War, Total War Rome 2, or any of the Total War series where like you can take an existing military campaign and go off and do whatever you want.
Yeah, like Gandhi take over the
yeah.
world in
Yeah.
Civ.
I guess
Yeah.
it's different just because it's not scripted.
It's creating your own
yeah.
alternate reality, like the Europa Universalis games. Like you can go and take over the world as like Poland.
I was thinking also like Infamous, where there's like a very true to life recreation of Seattle, but you can use fake monster powers in it.
Well, that's contemporary though.
Yeah.
So
But it won't be in a decade.
that's true. Yeah, it's like go back to look at XCOM. The original XCOM took place in 1999.
Exactly.
But it was made in 1990.
That's a question for GameScoop Junior, which will be hosted by our children.
Yep. Deadlight was released in 2012, but set in 1986 during a zombie outbreak in Seattle.
Oh man, yeah. This was a really interesting game.
It was like Limbo with guns.
I don't remember
Well,
it being
yeah.
great.
Yeah, Ryan McCaffrey reviewed it for us and really, really liked it.
Yeah.
I wasn't as hot on it, but
Yeah.
it was fun. It was a cool game.
It was like, this isn't Limbo.
Dan, how about The Bureau, XCOM Declassified?
That is another alternate history game. Yeah, that's like supposed to talk about the origins of XCOM, and they don't really tell you like what was it? Yeah, it was like, oh, this organization exists to fight, protect against a Soviet invasion. It was like a Cold War stuff, and then we're gonna change the name to XCOM for no reason.
For reasons.
Yeah, it's like they're like, we're gonna tell you the secret origins of XCOM, and those secret origins are because. It's like what?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a really kind of disappointing game.
I really liked its aesthetic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's very pretty, and especially that farm level I liked a lot. But like the mechanics of it were kind of disappointing in that like you would get into this situation where it's got this squad combat, which is a lot like Mass Effect. You order your teammates around, but then like one of them would get knocked down, and you have time to revive him before he dies. You can just send the other one over to revive him, and then he's invincible while he's reviving him. And then when they both revive, they get killed again, and then you set the other one to revive him, and they just go back and forth while you kill all the enemies. And it's like, what? No, sorry, bad.
Yeah, well, it was set in 1962 during the Cold War. The government is aware of aliens, and Kennedy actually had created the Bureau. It was like
Right.
sort of the...
Yeah, I hope we see more. You glossed over it in Deadlight that it was set in the 80s. Like that's a ripe, area. Especially the farther away we get from like the 70s and 80s. Like I'd like to see more games take a spin on that. Like it doesn't all need to be World War II and 1950s.
Yeah, exactly.
Actually, on the topic of XCOM, Xenonauts is a very loyal remake of the original XCOM, but they changed it from 1999 to 1989. So it was kind of a Cold War aesthetic in that one as well.
Nice. And like we mentioned earlier, Bioshock Infinite, yeah, the American government had built Columbia to serve as a floating World's Fair and as a display to the rest of the world of the success of America.
Yeah.
And then Columbia ended up seceding from the United States.
Man, what a gorgeous game now that
I know.
I'm watching this footage. Like I played it and wasn't especially impressed with like the gameplay, especially compared to Bioshock, but man, they nailed like the look and feel of that city.
Also, it's one of the best like first couple hours.
Yeah,
of the game
totally.
Yeah,
ever. It's so incredible.
I loved everything about this game except for the shooting people parts. Like the parts where I had to actually run around and kill people, I hated. But looking at this world was amazing. I would love to see sort of like a kind of a telltale revisit of something like this, where I can spend time in this world, but it doesn't hinge around just running around in circles and murdering people.
They made a fan made just a mock-up of what like a point-and-click adventure set in Colombia would look like.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Awesome. Send that to me.
I'm
It's
looking
just like
forward
one
to-
photo, but it was really evocative.
I'm
Finish
looking
that
forward
game
to-
and send it to me.
I'm looking forward to having like that game be retrofitted for Oculus Rift. Is it like you can walk around if you could walk around those first few hours where there's not really any combat and just kind of look around and be immersed in it, that'd be great.
I would walk to the edge of every balloon and stare down and just cry.
And
Yeah.
I didn't even have much of a problem with the combat in that game except for the stupid ghost boss.
Ghost Boss was
Yeah,
bad.
that wasn't.
I don't know.
wasn't fun.
All the cops ran at you like crazy, insane splicers,
Yes,
even though they were
true.
people.
Yeah,
they're supposed to be.
No, I'm not saying the combat was great.
Don't any of
I'm
you have
saying
families?
it wasn't like offensively bad. Like
No. It wasn't a terrible game at all, but I don't think it stacks up well against the original Bioshock in
True.
that regard.
I just think that like in terms of world building, that as an alternate timeline type of game is fascinating to me because they took everything that we have or that we understood from that time period and they put it in the sky on balloons. Like that's so cool.
It's very audacious. Like it was like in the fiction of the world, it was an audacious thing for the government to do, but it was an audacious thing for like a game developer to do too, and have all these buildings creaking and moving around and their elevation changing on the fly. Like we've never seen anything like that.
It wasn't just like we took a time period and added mutants or Nazis or robots or something like that. Although they did add robots, but they said we put it in the sky.
And a giant bird thing.
Yeah.
You also, I mean, you look at the footage that we just showed, and it's like dozens of drab, gray, dreary games. Just like all video games are drab and gray and dreary. Not all, but like
It's a lot of them.
too many. And then BioShock Infinite stands out, right? Blue skies, colorful, but still this kind of horrifying place in other ways. Yeah, maybe I need to give that game a second chance.
That game's great.
Yeah.
That brings us to the Order 1886, which is set in alternate history London, where an old order of knights keep all the world safe from half-breed monsters. Because that's, to our knowledge, that never actually happened.
Unless it did, and these guys just took care of business.
Yeah, same thing with Assassin's Creed. It's like, well, you can't prove this didn't happen.
That's true. There you have it, a brief history of alternate history in games.
I like, so the only thing that I read for fun is fantasy books. Like, I don't have anything against anything else, but that's just what I read for my personal entertainment. But the downside is always each one has to like invent a whole new world. Like, okay, here's what the politics are like. Here's what they use for money. Here's like what the map is. And here's like, they have to spend, 200 pages building, like, then by the time I wrap my head around it, it's like, well, maybe the story is or isn't good. And so alternate history gives you an opportunity to have like the best of both worlds. Like you don't need to explain to me America or Russia or China or Japan. Like I get all that, but then you can still invent crazy new scenarios and weapons and things that didn't really happen. So
Yeah, it's like one foot in reality and one foot in fantasy.
it lets you have this like fantastical scenario without wasting the all the time on the world building necessarily.
Is it interesting that there's no Nintendo game on that list? Does that just point out how Nintendo's only interested in fantasy?
Odama.
That's based in like feudal Japan.
Oh,
It is
man.
yeah.
What a deep cut.
I know.
had Odama.
Odama was a military
it was insane.
a military voice-controlled pinball game.
Yeah.
Where I think it took place in feudal Japan, and you had to fight troops using a giant ball,
Yeah.
and you controlled it using a GameCube controller and
You
your
controlled the
voice.
troops, and they
Yeah.
would push the ball around. Man,
Yeah.
that's the only video game
Yeah.
maybe in my life that I stopped playing just out of embarrassment.
Yeah.
Like, come on, I'm a gamer, I'll play anything, it doesn't matter. I was talking about how I have the Wii Fit amiibo, and there's some shame involved in that. But I was shouting into this microphone that was snapped onto my GameCube controller, and when my girlfriend was around, I'm like, I can't
You can't.
I can't do this.
And some would argue that Pikmin takes place in a real backyard, where people
yeah, no,
buy a lot of
Pikmin's-
Duracell batteries. That's kind of
Pikmin's
a real
totally
world, right?
good. That's so.
But we don't know what time period
Yeah,
that is.
Right. Well, the humans are gone. That's like, so it's almost kind of like this post-apocalyptic weird thing, or maybe the whole thing's in like someone's backyard and they think it's like a whole world.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I mean the thing about Nintendo games is none of them take place on Earth almost. So
Mario's from Brooklyn.
is that even like canonical
I don't know
these
if
days?
it's video game canonical. It might be.
That's actually a good question. Because in Mario
All right.
1, he's already in the Mushroom Kingdom.
We could do this for hours.
I don't know if that is a good question.
Moving on, time to take a look at the rankings of the major video game publishers for 2014. Metacritic puts this list together every year. I think it's very interesting. Now, this list is based on the average score for all games released in 2014 by a publisher.
Across all platforms?
Yes.
Interesting.
Well, iOS not included.
Okay.
And in order to be considered a major publisher, you have to have released at least 14 games.
Interesting.
And so there's 4 factors: average score of all games released, the percent of games with good reviews, which is 75 or higher, percent of games with bad reviews, which is 49 or lower, and then the number of great reviews, which is 90 or higher.
Now, wait, sorry. Is this 14 reviews in 1 year? Or
14 releases in 1 year.
in 1 year? Wow.
Yeah.
Not a lot of publishers. Did Activision even put out 14 games last year?
Oh,
I
yeah.
guess we'll find out. Activision Blizzard. So, And based on that criteria, anyone have a guess as to who the number one publisher of 2014 was?
Nintendo.
Yes.
Yeah, 100%.
Nintendo, average 2014 score 76.5. Only major publisher to have a good average score. So average score above 75.
Wow.
Interesting.
So-
how many games did they release?
I don't have that number, but it was
Okay.
at least 14.
Okay, because I'm guessing it was probably not. I don't know if it was much more than 14.
They're also the only publisher to have more than one game with a score of 90 or higher. So Smash Bros. And Bayonetta 2.
Oh, nice.
Only publisher.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's actually, so Nintendo didn't develop Bayonetta 2, they did publish it. And that's sort of the one thing to keep in mind, that
Sure.
this is a list of publishers. So a publisher funded a studio, gave them a pile of money and said, make this game, and then, they get to sort of take the credit in this, these results for its success or failure.
Yeah.
They get the credit as the publisher. Yes.
Right. Because no developer is obviously releasing more than, a handful of games a year.
Yeah. Nintendo's best scored game of the year was Super Smash Bros. For Wii U.
Yeah.
The
Well
best,
deserved.
The best new original game, though, was Bravely Default. The score of 85.
Wow.
Interesting.
3DS RPG released early last year.
Yeah, really good RPG. Yeah, I mean, Nintendo games in an era where, we were writing more and more about this on IGN, and it's entered gamer consciousness. Games are launching broken, except for Nintendo games.
Yeah.
Like, they have this quality threshold that, like them or hate them, even if you don't like Smash, like, it's not your thing, you're not into it, you don't like the pacing, whatever, like, there's no denying that it's, like, rock solid in what it's trying to do.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
They're just not. They're not. Haven't adopted the release now, patch later attitude that the rest of the publishers seem to have done.
And they did do DLC last year, but I feel like they did it pretty mostly right.
oh, yeah, Mario Kart's got maybe the best DLC.
Yeah. Ever.
Yeah.
And I think Smash did have a 0-day patch to enable online multiplayer,
Yep.
which I think is the exception to that rule. But
Yeah, I mean, I just don't ever associate Nintendo games with bugs or glitches, or they certainly exist just like anybody else, but they seem to have put much more emphasis on QA.
yeah, there's no like big disasters.
Yeah, exactly.
Nintendo's worst reviewed game of 2014 was a game I had never heard of, Chibi Robo Photo Finder.
Oh, really?
For 3DS.
Yep, I passed on that one.
Yeah,
I was never much of a Chibi Robo guy, though.
I like the original.
Yeah?
Yeah,
The GameCube one?
They
Or was
made
it N64?
it was a GameCube.
Okay.
They made a Chibi Robo for DS, I think, that only came out at Walmart or GameStop. Like, it was a retailer exclusive.
Yeah. It may be GameStop.
Might have been
but I
GameStop.
remember that, yeah. The number 2 publisher was Ubisoft.
really.
Average score of 74.1. And they were also the second place publisher in 2013. So 2 years running.
Yeah, I wonder. That's got to be on the strength of like Far Cry,
Well-
and Watch Dogs scored reasonably well.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah, but
All things
2014
Oh,
was
yeah.
also Child of Light, Rayman Legends
true.
came out on more consoles.
True.
Like, everyone thinks about Ubisoft as this, a little bit shaky company thanks to Assassin's Creed and stuff like that, but they still release a tremendous number of, very
Generally well received.
yeah.
They were
critically-
one of only 3 major publishers that didn't release a bad game, meaning they didn't release a game that scored lower than 50. That got an average review score of less than 50.
Interesting.
Wow.
Best reviewed game was Rayman Legends, which I know Altano's a big fan of.
Oh, I love that game. So that was, I guess you mentioned it, right?
on
It got,
PS4. Like,
It got released on more platforms for the first time. Got it.
Yeah,
PS4 and Xbox One, right?
Yep.
Both those consoles. Yeah.
which is kind of a cheat for this purpose.
It's
but-
what they released.
well,
this
call
year.
the cops, Dan.
It's a really good game.
Yep.
Ubisoft's best reviewed new game or original game would be Child of Light. That was very well received. And then its worst reviewed game was Shape Up, that exercise game that they showed off at E3
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
last year. That only had a 52.
Yeah, we didn't get to that one. I mean, like unless there's like not a lot else happening, we don't generally cover the exercise games.
Yeah. The number 3 publisher was EA. Average review score of 74.5. But so you might notice Ubisoft's average review score is 74.1, ranked lower than Ubisoft because of a smaller number of good reviews and no great reviews. So
Right.
that's how it's like weighted.
Really,
in
it
their
didn't
rankings.
get great reviews for Dragon Age.
No, it wasn't 90.
90
Oh,
or
okay.
higher.
Okay.
So EA released 9 fewer games in 2014 than in 2013.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's actually a big contraction.
So
Which
they
is
had
good.
stuff like Battlefield
Yeah.
that gets pushed, right?
Yeah, I mean, again, people think about EA and Ubisoft as these companies these days. They're kind of under fire from gamers, but they still release, Game of the Year winners like Dragon Age. They still release, people have problems with Titanfall, but there's no denying that the actual gameplay in that game was incredibly good.
Yeah.
And that also, EA deserves props for stuff like that.
Yeah, and it's just a matter of like, do you hold them, do you judge it by like, did they live up to their crazy marketing promises, or is this a good game? Sure. And it's a good game that like, Titanfall didn't change the world. It didn't challenge Call of Duty, but good game.
Yeah.
I think it's more fun to play. It's just the content, the nature of the content.
Yep.
EA sports games average 71, while non-sports games are 77.3.
71 seems kind of low.
It was an off year for them because they've been doing, kind of migrating to new gen consoles, and they're having big problems with filling those new versions of the games with the same kind of content they have in the old ones. So when you go from the old ones to the new ones, you're like, hey, where are all the modes? Where's all the stuff? They just haven't had time to add that in yet, so those games just are received poorly.
Interesting.
Even though, like, mechanically they can be sound, they're just like, they don't have all the stuff people are used to.
When I actually think, NBA certainly drives down that average. Like,
It does,
it's the one sports franchise where they're getting thoroughly thumped every year.
Though it has, it only came out last year. Like, they revived it last year, and just, like, it was a disaster.
NBA Live.
This year is a little bit better. Yeah.
NBA Live was EA's worst reviewed game of the year. The Sims 4 was a disappointment, at least critically.
Yep.
It has an average review of 70 and is the lowest scoring Sims game yet.
Yep. That's why what I was talking about when that one came out is that for a normal game, 70 is pretty good.
Yeah.
For a Sims game where people have really big expectations, like calling a Sims game good is damning with slight praise.
Yeah, sure. The best reviewed EA game of the year, of course, was Dragon Age Inquisition.
They also announced it was BioWare's best-selling game. Or they've actually phrased it in kind of a weird way. They said it had the best launch in terms of money.
Okay,
And
so it made the most money, even though though it might not have sold the most copies.
Well, I mean, maybe it did sell the most copies too, but just their phrasing gave them some wiggle room there. But they said it was BioWare's strongest launch ever.
And EA's best reviewed original game was Titanfall, unsurprisingly. The number 4 publisher was Sony. Average review score of 72.5. Only 39% of Sony's releases got positive reviews, though.
Wow.
Yeah.
So they're like way outweighed by its best reviewed game, which is The Last of Us Remastered, which has an average review score of 95.
Wow.
So that game got a 95, but its average review score is only 72.5.
Yeah, I imagine a lot of that's weighed down by a bunch of like small Vita ports and stuff like that.
It's the Vita. It's hurt by the Vita's lineup. The average Vita review is 69, and they only had 5 positive reviews this year.
Wow. Got to shake that dead weight.
And it's not that they're all Vita games are bad, but like you said, like a lot of these are re-releases of older games that are just being ported over to Vita, and just like, well, now you have something to play on Vita if you really want.
I love my Vita. I feel like it never. I don't know if it ever did, or if it ever will, sort of receive what it really truly needs to exist, and it gets a lot of these sort of mocked down versions of console games or games that don't really belong on it to begin with, and I would have rather Sony focused on original content for it.
Much like Nintendo has done with the 3DS.
Yeah,
It sort of feels like they're big bets. Like, it has been a lot of ports, but even the stuff that's not ports just hasn't always panned out. Like, maybe it hasn't been awful, but it also hasn't been, like, great. Like, I don't own a Vita, and I'm sort of waiting for there to be enough good games that I'm like, all right, I'll finally pick one up. That's what I do with any console I don't grab day one. And the Vita just never really got there for me. Like, a bunch of, like, yeah, it's okay. Yeah, it's good. Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, it's good. I need like 5 great games, and I'll be like, all right, I'm ready to jump in.
And like, the PS4 had an amazing year at retail, but I don't really know if it's sort of not. It hasn't been with the benefit of a ton of first party stuff that's really knocked it out the park. Like, it's actually in spite of that. Because if you're buying a PlayStation for amazing first party software, I don't think that 2014 was really the year for that.
Yeah, I mean, Sony has great stuff coming, but it definitely, at the expense of releasing stuff in the calendar year 2014.
I enjoyed Last of Us Remastered. I enjoyed Infamous and even the DLC, but and there was a few others here and there. But
Sony's best reviewed original game was Hohokum, and its worst reviewed game was SingStar Ultimate Party. Number 5 publisher was Square Enix. Average review score of 71.7. Best reviewed game was Final Fantasy X 10-2 HD Remaster on Vita. The best original game was Murdered Soul Suspect on PC, but that only got a 59.
Oh.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, that game very polarizing.
Yeah. And then its worst reviewed game was Deus Ex: The Fall the PC version. Which is, the reason was it's just like a straight port of an
iOS game.
Yeah, we actually I reviewed the iOS version positively
that was
because
really good,
it's fully voice acted and pretty, and you explore, another sort of futuristic city. It was really, really impressive to have in your pocket, but it's a big mistake to put that game on PC.
And just the controls were not adapted.
Yeah.
Like, they're
That's-
just
that's
badly
it.
done.
That's it.
Nothing's worse than a game that controls badly.
Yeah.
The number 6 publisher is Microsoft. Average review score of 68.9. Best reviewed game was Minecraft on Xbox One. Best original game was Sunset Overdrive, which got an 81. But this was the second straight year that Microsoft did not release a game that got a 90 or higher average review.
I am surprised that Sunset Overdrive's review average is only 81. I mean, that's incredibly high, but like that game was really, really good.
Does Microsoft get credit for releasing Minecraft on all the PlayStation platforms and stuff like that under their banner? I mean, that was Mojang, but they bought Mojang. So
Yeah,
They'd
I guess
be
I
the
don't know how
publisher
they work
now,
that
yeah.
out. But
Yeah.
they are the publisher now, but I don't know if they actually published them at the time. Yeah, I'm not sure. Worst reviewed Microsoft game was Dead Rising 3 Chaos Rising. DLC for that game. Number 7 publisher, Bandai Namco. Really surprised on there. Average score of 68. Best reviewed game, Dark Souls 2. That's why they're on there. Best original game was Deadcore, a PC game.
What?
I don't think I've
Deadcore.
heard of that.
Called
I've legitimately
79.
never heard of that game.
All right, I know we're running out of time, but I do have footage of Deadcore that I can pull up.
That sounds like a game made from a random game name
Yeah.
generator.
This is Deadcore on PC. It came out this year. Has an average
Oh,
review
this!
score.
Yeah, no, this is
79.
awesome. This is like the first-person shooter, but without the shooting, like first-person platforming.
Okay.
Yeah, I bought this game on Steam. It's another game I bought because it looked rad, and then haven't had a chance to play it yet.
This looks amazing.
It does have shooting, but what you're shooting is like switches to make platforms appear.
Yeah.
You're not actually killing anybody.
So it's like precision shooting. Like,
Got it.
Yeah. I don't know whether it's good or not, but I remember I watched this exact trailer and I'm like, this looks badass.
Yeah.
And finally, the number 8 publisher is Activision Blizzard. Average review score of 67.1. They're apparently always hanging out near the bottom of the list because they release a lot of bad games. And this is putting Activision and Blizzard together. If you subtract the Activision portion, Blizzard would have an average review score of 85.5.
Yeah.
So the best reviewed game was Diablo 3 Ultimate Evil Edition. The best original game was Destiny. Their worst game they released this year was Transformers Rise of the Dark Spark. The Wii U version in particular.
Yeah.
Still going after those movie games.
Yeah.
Yeah, that Rise of the Dark Spark. Like on Wii U, it didn't even have the multiplayer, which was our reviewer's favorite part of it. He still thought it was a bad game, regardless of platform. But take away the multiplayer, and it's even worse.
If you you mentioned at the top that this is all Metacritic based, right?
Yes, this is all Metacritic data.
So they did the mid-tier publishers, like the ones that didn't make that many games each year, and on that list, Telltale was number 1.
Interesting.
Before we go, Justin, it's 2:59. Can we discuss what we're playing this weekend before we go?
Yes.
All right, Dan, what are you playing this weekend?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm probably going to jump into some Dying Light.
There you go.
I haven't jumped in yet, but I need to.
Justin?
Yeah, I'm playing Dying Light as well. I started it last night. The game opens very weirdly. It does get better, but that first hour is super strange.
Totally agree with you. That's actually just what I got through, and then I came to work, and I was like, huh,
Yeah,
everyone
okay.
loves this game? And everyone was like, go back and play more.
Yeah, it gets
It's like,
better.
okay. I'm playing Majora's Mask 3D.
yeah.
And so we've talked about this for years, actually.
Yeah, we disagree.
Yeah, where I never liked the game,
Yeah.
and you always loved it, and you always told me like we should do like a series where
Like
we
a
revisit it or something.
book club, game
and there was
club.
never really like truly a way to do that, and now Nintendo's given us that. So it's out in a few weeks. I'm playing it now, and I actually really enjoy it. Like it's got a ton of problems. It's not my favorite Zelda. I don't see how it could be anyone's favorite Zelda. It's good, but it's not up there like that. But I'm giving it a second chance and giving it a fair shake, and I'm really enjoying it.
Well, it's my favorite Zelda in my memory, but maybe that'll turn out to be an alternate history. I'm playing a very different game this weekend. I'm playing this. It's called Hero Emblems. It's an iPad game. It's puzzle. It's
I have Hero
an
Emblems.
RPG mastery game, like Puzzle Quest. It's very cool. You have 4 people in your party. Each one is a different class. So like when you match the swords, your fighter will attack. When you match the hearts, your healer will heal everybody.
This looks like I would play this for 100 hours.
Yeah, I'm totally addicted to it. I have to note though, while I definitely recommend this game, it is a grind fest.
Right.
Every boss you meet is way overpowered and you have to grind to level up your characters. I happen to like that sort of thing.
But it's also good for like the bus, right? Just
Sure,
like grind
yeah.
out some
Just
battles.
grind,
and then
grind.
It's also
level
worth
up your
pointing out
characters.
that it's a few dollars, $2 or $3
It's
or
like
$4,
$3,
and
yeah, it's
there's
not a
no in-app purchases.
Not a free-to-play game, no in-app purchases, so I'm really enjoying it.
What's it called?
hero emblems.
Sweet.
Yeah.
I'm downloading that.
Very cool. All right, that's all the scoops we had for you this week. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Justin. Thank you, Brian. Remember, you can always reach us at the email address, gamescoop@ign.com. And if you want a copy of the Order 1886, go to ign.com/orderscoop. Enter your info there. My name is Damon. This is IGN Gamescoop, and we're out.